Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar for the Artfluence Human Rights Festival. My name is uMngeni. I am a 21-year-old honors student at the University of Witwatersrand, a writer, a public speaker, social entrepreneur, and founder of a nonprofit company called Blackboard Africa that is a platform for vulnerable South African youth to cultivate their talents and creativity while developing essential leadership skills. Today, I will be the moderator of this really super exciting conversation that we're about to have with these incredible panelists on Gen Z artists, arts and the future of human rights. So how do young artists think about the kind of work that they're making or want to make? And what are the ways in which Gen Z artists are making art that will address climate change and promote and protect human rights? So let's just get into it and hear from some of the really incredible people at the forefront of these conversations through their art and their work. I think let's start with Pegy Samini. Please, would you go ahead and introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less?
Okay, hi everyone. I think just a little bit of a correction. It's actually Pegy Samini. I'm a theatre practitioner, storyteller. I'm a high school educator by profession, and I enjoy theatre work. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry about that mistake. It's lovely to meet you. I think let's jump to Nspa. Please, we'd like to hear from you. Could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less?
Hello everyone. My name is Nspa. I am from Cape Town. I am a multidisciplinary artist. I work in theatre, film, and visual arts. I am a UCT graduate in theatre and performance, the Center for Theatre, Dance, and Performance Studies. Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. And let's hear from Josie Vincent. Introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less.
Hello guys, my name is Josie Vincent and I am a photographer and I make film and I work with ROSA and I'm also a stand-up comic.
Thanks for joining us. Last person, please may you introduce yourself, Lita Samsam. All right, not sure if he's hearing us. So maybe let me jump into some of the other questions and we'll get back to him a little bit later. So this question is for you, Pegy. I would really love to know why you've decided to become an artist and what kind of work do you want to make and why?
I think I decided to become an artist simply because I think this is the only platform that I think that allows us to really be true about ourselves. It also gives us that opportunity not to be so formal and be so robotic, but we get to be creative. We get to find new things that we can express. We find new ways of how to tell a story, whether it is funny. We also find new ways of how to address issues that we face on a daily basis, and especially issues that we're afraid to speak about in public, but rather it also gives us a platform to find a space where we can address these issues and just be powerful about it and be authentic about it and not be afraid. And so the kind of work that I want to produce or rather make, I don't want to put it in a category, but rather I would want to create work that is rather meaningful, educational, inspiring, and also empowering. So I don't want to put it in a specific category because I don't want to challenge myself into something that I'm unable to fulfill. So I would rather say something that is rather empowering, inspiring, encouraging. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing, inspiring, honestly. I think let's hear from Josie Vincent. You know, why did you decide to become an artist? And what kind of work are you looking to make? What impact are you trying to have in this space?
Well, I chose to be an artist basically when I came to the realization that physically I wasn't able to do any sports because I have two left feet, and I just started looking around. I'd always envisioned myself, producing, anything that had to do with visual, like it would be acting or making videos or telling jokes or being in any sort of art form that that you get to project, like what Becky said, you get to project your inner feelings or whatever social issue that we're facing. So from that part, and I've always been like, I always wanted to do public speaking and stuff like that, but sometimes you just don't have the nerve or the energy or like the chi basically to stand in front of an audience and talk. But I also found that in stand-up comedy. So I chose that, and I said, okay, this is the way that maybe I can use my own talents to talk about social issues that we face. It could be about pollution, it could be about violence, it could be just about anything. So I find myself at peace when I talk about art, or when I do my art to the people.
Amazing, amazing. I think it's so important that you're finding your voice and you're cultivating your voice through your art and kind of telling your story through that. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Nspa, please could we hear from you? Why did you decide to become an artist? What inspired that decision? And what message are you looking to tell through your art?
I don't think there was a point in my life where I kind of decided that I want to be an artist. I do think that my childhood experiences have drawn me into the industry or into the craft itself that I am exploring and growing into. I mean, I observe a lot. I am a very sensitive person, and I do think that in terms of creating or in terms of engaging in any art form, I draw within the kind of person that I am as a sensitive person. And also something that I realized while growing up, that I'm a very spiritual person. I am a so-called cold person in terms of African traditions. And I draw a lot of inspiration from that. I am very interested on how African cultures are performances on their own without being labeled, without being professionally defined that is art or that is a craft. So it really comes from African roots to me. Being an artist, it really comes from my calling. It really comes from my ancestors. It really comes from observing and feeling what has happened, what is happening, and what is yet to happen. And for me, specifically as a Black woman in this country, it is very important to search the voices of the past, the present, and the future for a Black child.
Beautiful, beautiful. Literally, like, I think it's just a testament of how art is just running through you and honestly through all of us, through our heritage, like you're saying, through our culture. That's really, really beautiful. Lita, I see you've joined us. I think you missed the introduction, so could we please just hear from you? Could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less? And could you let us know what prompted you to decide, or what prompted your decision to become an artist? I think you're going to have to unmute first. There we go.
Is it working now? Can you hear me? 1, 2. Okay, cool. So my name is Lita Samsam, 22 years old. I'm from Vryheid, just nearby Muizenberg in Western Cape. So I'm an artist. I do drama and storytelling. So uh, I, I'm coming from a project called the Loction Mobile Library. It's a kids book machine. So basically what we do is we visit kids in spaces they feel comfortable in, such as your playgrounds, sport fields, churches, street corners. So the whole idea is to try and create a reading culture within our disadvantaged communities through storytelling, right? So we have this library and we're working with local preschools that we cater to them, our services. You know, it's a growing project, and our focus is to improve the kids' vocabulary, language development, literacy skills, and broaden up their imagination. You know, because growing in communities like us, like Black communities, whereby there's high gangsterism, alcohol abuse, and all of these negative things, we believe that a book it is an escape plan for us, you know, especially young kids in the community, in the townships, you know. For instance, if you just saw someone being shot at, or maybe someone drunk and they're fighting, you know, and that's traumatizing as a kid, you can just take a book, you know, and the book that you might take might be written by someone who's from America, from Tanzania, from everywhere around the world, you know. And by reading that book, it means that you've escaped, not escaped, but you've tried to move away from that situation, and you've like motivated yourself, you know. So why did I become an artist? Is because I believe that I have a voice. If I'm an artist, I believe that I can be creative as much as I can when I'm an artist. There's no boundaries. I'm just transgress, but in a good way, you know. And I feel whenever I'm doing art, whenever I'm in like on stage performing for the kids or reading a book to a kid and all of that, I found healing, man. I found, you know, massage. I found relaxation, and I just become myself. You know, it works. I believe that, especially as Africans, you know, we really need to respect art, because I feel like art is part and parcel of our lives. You know, it's because even our grandfathers, they've been doing it. You know, it's within us. You know, sometimes I don't believe that you have to go to university or any other institutions to just grasp art. You have it in your blood, but going to the institutions is just a motivation and a stimulation. And how do I address current issues with what I'm doing? So this opportunity that I'm part of as a project manager of Local Mobile Library came like early 2020. I was doing an internship in a local preschool, and then what we were doing there, we were like helping kids who are struggling a bit with their literacy and numeracy. And then I loved what I was doing, and I was like, wow, this is really needed. And fortunately, I got lucky because I got employed in my community, in a local school in my community. So it means that those kids that we were helping, they're from my community. And then COVID-19 came in the picture early that year. And then that kind of made things very hard, because I couldn't do what I love. I couldn't do what I was exposed to, you know, and I'm new to this thing and I'm looking forward, I'm excited. And now COVID-19 came in. So I told myself that, you know what, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to take this thing out of school. I'm going to take it to my community, you know, because that's where the niche is, you know, because the kids that are from the community. What?
Yeah, no. That's really incredible. And I think what you're sort of speaking about in terms of, you know, the power of the arts to heal. I think there's so many things that it is so powerful and so useful for. And I think my next question is, you know, just thinking about some of the human rights that we have specifically in South Africa, and how sometimes they're not being met. You know, I think my question to you, Joseph, would be, how do you think the arts can be used to get us closer to those rights, or get us closer to achieving and accessing those rights?
I would like to give like a recent example of something that recently happened on the internet. I don't know if you guys were aware of it. A young group of teenagers, basically, they throwed social media accounts of dictators, right? They basically trolled them. They were reporting them to the social media's bosses and stuff like that. And during that time, there was so much noise that happened on the internet to the point where most of those accounts were taken. So coming back to your question, I feel like as art, that was a win for art and that was a win for human rights, to a point that people were making videos, people were making songs, people were making memes. I remember, I think it was in China, they, because and most of us, we all know that social media is banned in China, but a lot of people using memes to put their voices out there, which memes are basically a form of art. It's a form of comedy art, and they were using that type of art to speak up and voice up until there was so much noise. And most of those dictators, yeah, they were shaken. Basically, they were in fear that, okay, the people are rising, and it was such a win. I just want to point out to a point that it was such a win for art to see it being used not only as a form of entertainment, but also as a voice and also as a winning weapon. So, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And I hear you, like, art wins in that scenario. Human rights win, and that's incredible. That's incredible. And I think I would really love to have this conversation, bring it back to South Africa. This is our context, this is our country, this is our home. And I think we can all agree there's so many problems, there's so many things that need addressing, and not just addressing, that need fixing. So I think this would be a question that I would love to hear a little bit from everybody, is just, for you on a personal level, what's that thing that you think is such a priority in terms of the things that need to be fixed in our society? And do you think that art can fix it?
Okay.
I think let's start with you, Pegy.
I think, oh my gosh, there's so much that needs to be fixed within our societies. But for me, I just personally feel that one thing that needs to be fixed within our society, I think, is ourselves first. Because I believe that, the question would be, what makes up society? We make up society. And I think when we are educated about the things around us, when we're educated about issues around us, and we learn about ourselves, we learn about the things around us, and I think we are the first step of great contribution to society. We are the first step of great contribution to our country. So I think for me, the priority of things that need to be fixed, I think it's us first. We need to fix ourselves. We need to understand ourselves, and we need to also stick to if we are fighting for something, let us stick to it and not be hypocrite. We only rise up when the need, when we feel it is appropriate for us to rise up, and then we take a step back when we feel we're not affected. Oh no, that got nothing to do with me. So we take a step back. And then, or when we feel we need some sort of social media followers to increase, we step forward and then we disappear, in the window, So for me, I personally feel that we need to fix ourselves, because we make up society. So it's not a political people. They are just there as guidance, as people to just, as finance people. But who makes up society? It is us. Do we want to live in a peaceful society? Definitely. But that would be us who need to create that peaceful society. So priority, would we fix? It has to be us, our personal selves.
Wow. And that is so transformative, because a lot of the time we like to project and say we need these people to come in and fix this, and we need them to do their jobs right. And at the end of the day, it's our society, it's our world that we're living in, and we need to make a decision if we want to play a part in seeing it be better than what it is right now. I think let's go to you, Nspa. I would love to hear what is sort of priority number one for you in this space, and how do you think we can fix it using art?
This is a very interesting question. And it's just making me think while Pegy was speaking. I I think what is a priority, like, or just thinking of what we can fix within our society, or even within our industry. Can I just merge that community and our industry as artists? Is that we really need to reflect on where we are as a nation in South Africa. And we really need to be very realistic of how we are and where we are as people. Personally, I feel like there are three worlds in South Africa. There is the township, there is CBD town, there is rural areas like the Eastern Cape. This is me in a perspective of a closer person coming from Cape Town, being raised in Cape Town and attending school in town and going back to the Eastern Cape. In order for things to be fixed, we really need to look at the reality of where our people are positioned and what is happening in those spaces. Because I feel like a lot of times when I hear people talking about what can be fixed or the position of the country, people think that we are on the same level as people. People think that democracy has shaped one sort of a foundation for everyone, but other people are behind, not because they are lazy, but because of circumstances, because of situations that they are growing up in, and really that affects how someone perceives themselves, or just how someone dreams in a specific space. And so how do we then become one thing, or how do we then think of one thing in terms of fixing? I mean, the word fixing is very heavy actually, but I really think or believe that we need to reflect and define, as in who is where, what is where, why are they there, and really respect where people are and how we can form one thing. Yeah, but personally, fixing is very heavy.
I think I completely understand you. I think one thing for me is, I think one approach that I try to take is, we're building. I like to think of myself as a social architect. Like, I think there's definitely a place for demolishing and demystifying and dismantling systems of oppression that have been happening, but there also needs to be a space for building, for like being the architects of the society we want to see. We need to be a part of building that, and so I think we can jump to you, Joseph. What's something that's a priority for you? And I know there's so many things going on in the world, but like, I just want to hear from you. Like, what's your personal thing that you think is a top priority? Like, for example, for me, being a young Black South African woman, gender-based violence and safety is a major priority, because it directly affects me. It affects my siblings. It affects the way that we have to live our lives, always looking over our shoulders. So, that's something that's a priority for me. And I think one thing that I've tried to do in sort of the work that I do is approach it by fixing it and addressing sort of the young men, bringing them into the conversation about consent, about this and about that, So I think I would love to just hear from you what's something that personally is an issue that you really think is a priority, and how do you think art can address it?
Personally, I feel like everyone's everybody's state of mental like health should be at their best. This is speaking as someone that also struggled with depression a few years back. I mean, like, at this point, most of us, we're all going through some sort of depression. But I feel like the priority we should get our mental health checked first. We should all be in a state where we are happy and we are making wise decisions, because if we make wise decisions, we all happy and we are living in the society where everyone is happy. I'll emphasize the fact happy, because I feel like sometimes we take happiness and we think maybe happiness is going out, drinking, having fun, and that. Happiness is just being, for me, I would like to describe it as just being in a state of making, how can I put this? Being in a healthy state of mind where you are free of anything that's weighing you down from going further to achieve your dreams or going further to make everyone around you happy. So I feel like for me, it's gonna be mental health. Like I know personally, I'm a people pleaser. I like everyone around me to be happy. Recently, a friend of mine threatened, suicide, and then everyone had to jump up, and then we had to run around trying to make sure that it's okay. And the thing that bothered me the most was when he was threatening suicide. It also affected me partly. You know what I'm saying? It was like, okay, I can't lose this guy. What do I have to do? We all now had to rush, go to, you were staying in Ladysmith at that time. We all had to rush to, we had to try and go to Ladysmith to make sure that it was okay. And that, in a way, affected me. And I remember that time I was working on a project. I started feeling heavy. I couldn't proceed. I couldn't work, with a clear mind. So yeah, I feel like mental health, everyone's mental health should be a main priority at the moment.
Amazing, amazing. I see that we have Lita back on the call. So if you are able, and take isn't, too hectic, we'd love to hear from you. What's something that you think really needs fixing in South Africa, and how do you think art, or specifically your art, can address this issue? Okay, I think we have a bit of a tech issue with Lita. So I think let's jump into a new question. And I think us, being really young people on this call, it's really incredible to see, so many young people really pioneering, this space in the arts, and sort of what Nspa, spoke about in terms of, the industry and some things that need changes there. So I would just love to hear from all of you. What do you think the difference is between us and sort of the boomers, or, these older generations? What are we bringing to the table as Gen Z that's different, that's unique? How are we, changing the conversation? How are we pushing it forward? What makes us different as I'm a 2000, so I would love to hear from you. Maybe let's start with Nspa.
What's different? What is different? I mean, can I just be personal in terms of my answer? I mean, I believe that I create a lot of provocatable work, very amandla, kind of works. And because I've been around older artists who have been creating such works, but what I find about the way that I approach the work, or my perspective as an artist, is very in a childish manner. Like, it's very playful. I mean, theater is a play. It's about playing, but I really approach work in a very young age, character, or just my designs and the kind of way that I just form the narrative of social justice and Ubuntu and I think we are not completely different from the older generation. And the reason for that, I think that we are still affected by what the older generation was affected by, you know, and we are tired. I think we have an energy that we're tired. We're tired, and we know that these things have been spoken about. A lot of older artists have created works like this in this narrative, but then we have like a perspective of we're tired and we must just pass this phase because it keeps on continuing and creeping into us. And so we are finding ways and perspectives of creeping out, but we're still forming in the same narrative, but we are really looking into creeping out of the narrative because it is tiring. We really cannot be having protesting works in 2022. Like, for real, it just says a lot about the country. It really says a lot. And I feel like, for me, when I was thinking about this discussion, I was like, no, man, like, there's a lot that I'm doing that a lot of older artists are doing. But hey, there's nothing I can do in terms of creating nicer works. Like, I cannot neglect what is happening now. It's really a thing or a perspective of creeping out of this heavy narrative.
That's beautiful. And I think I really love that you acknowledge that essentially we're not the first ones to be doing these things, guys. And that's just the reality. I don't know if anybody's ever heard this saying, but it just came to me now that essentially there's nothing new under the sun. You know, oppression is not new. You know, the world and the earth, you know, being in trouble and climate change happening, it's not essentially new. It's just, you know, new ways that we're experiencing them. So I think, you know, with that said, I think we are very much all connected through our experiences, through our struggles, through, you know, the things that we embark on. But I definitely would argue that, you know, there's something unique about our generation in the sense that we were birthed inside of the digital age. Like, we have always known cell phone, internet, TV, Wi-Fi, you know, this is our language. And that, for me, like, that's something that's really unique about our generation. But I would really love to know from you, Joseph, you know, what distinguishes us as Gen Z and our contribution to the art space.
I feel like it's the guts that we have, basically, because I feel, no offense to the older generation, but I feel like during the back in the time, they kept quiet. I mean, they had their own struggle, which is already different to our own struggle, and they might have kept quiet, you know, with a few things, you know, like stuff like mental health. It wasn't really addressed back in the days, but now the young kids, we talking now. We be standing up and we talking about everything. It's all about spearheading and changing the narrative of everything that's happening. And this also has to do with the time that we're living. I mean, we are fully embracing our time. For example, I can give the type of, if I play Drake for my father, he will never understand. You always trash on Drake, like, oh, who's this? What are they trying to say? Because it's a different time. They will clearly never understand. But because we are living in this time and we understand it better and we are proud of it and we embrace it, we are pushing it forward. We're not putting it behind us. Okay, or like our parents used to listen to this type of shit. We're not this type of stuff. We're not trying to say it's bad. No, but it's just the times that we're living in is different, and we just have to accept it. I would also like to point out like another great example of a recently released animated movie. Is some of you have watched Encanto? It's a great example of how the young generation is finally coming out and checking the old generation for stuff that they did, which is really not like in a disrespectful way, but it's just basically looking out for ourselves. Okay, this is what happened, and we need to fix it. And I feel like if we can all all the generations, we can all embrace that type of attitude, I think we can probably go far. And ensure everybody's happiness.
Oh, I love that you brought up Encanto. That is like my new favorite movie. Please, if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. It's a beautiful story. The portrayal of, Black and South American people, their hair, their skin, the melanin. It was beautiful, beautiful. But more so speaking to sort of what you were saying, in the sense that no disrespect to everything that the older generations have achieved. I think we can all acknowledge that you had a very different set of circumstances to deal with, very different set of struggles to deal with. And there were very different consequences for you taking action than there are for us. Back in the day, standing up and making art, it could very well get you killed. And there is sort of, there's a space right now as young people where, as much as there are consequences for us using our voices, I do think, and we have to acknowledge everything that they have done for us to be able to have the freedom to call people out and to be able to call out the problems that we see in the world. So, like I'm saying, no disrespect to the amazing work that has been done to get us to where we are, but we need to keep the ball rolling. For sure. So I think let's jump to you, Becky. What do you think distinguishes us as Gen Z and as this young generation?
I think I'm gonna just pick up from where Nspa and Joseph left off. I think what really distinguishes and makes us very different from the old generation is the fact that we are not afraid to address an issue the same time it arises. We speak on time. We want things to be solved right now. We're not afraid, to voice it out. And I also think we also acknowledge the fact that we do not want to kind of go backwards. We want to move forward. We don't want to live in the time where we were programmed to, this is where you can go, this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. I just feel like we are so different to the fact we're not afraid, whatever we want to do, we do it. We go out there, we express ourselves, we make it happen for ourselves. And of course, the older generation, I'm sure they would have wanted the same thing, but because of the time and the era in which they were in, they were programmed, of course, to also be in that time era. I think it would also, at the time era that we are also in, it forces us to also come out and be ourselves, find this way, fight for what is right. And stand up for what is right and definitely not work backwards. I think for us, that's the good thing about our generation, is the fact that we do not want to go backwards, but we want to, we want to move forward. And exactly what you said, we were born in, in the technology. Half. I'm not exactly a 2000 fully youth. So I'd say I half, which is a good thing because it allows me to accept where I come from, accept where I'm presently am, and see where I want to go to. So for me, I see 3 steps in my life. It allows me to see where I've come from and I should not be there, where I'm presently am I happy where I am, or do I want to do more and create a greater future for myself and everybody, of course, that follows with. So I think that's the greatest thing about, our current youth, the fact that we are such great fighters and change makers, of course.
Snaps for that. And I think one thing that really stood out for me from what you said was kind of your take on the fact that you're a half and half, as you put it, gives you a lot of perspective. And I think that's something that we always need to keep in mind as artists, as people who are trying to generate change, is perspective. And I think one thing that we do need to consider is that there's certain levels of privilege that come with, education, that come with access, that come with, all these different things. And I think one question that I would love to pose to you is, what is something, or what are some things that, we can be doing as people in the industry, or, as older generations, what are some things that they can be doing better to open up the industry, to be creating more access. You know, there's so many challenges around, like I'm saying, funds, education, like there's so many things or so many barriers or so many gatekeepers in this space. And I think, what can we be doing better to be broadening that access? Because we're having this conversation here, it's beautiful. But I think Nspa even, you know, alluded to the fact that there are so many people from so many different backgrounds, so many communities, whether it's Lokshan, whether it's township, whether it's rural areas. How do we bring people from these different backgrounds into the conversation without, you know, pushing them to the outskirts because they don't have access to certain things? I think let's start with Becky. Yeah.
I think for me, it's making the resources available, make things available for people. And I think that's the one thing that's missing for us, whether it be at school, whether it be in theater, wherever it is, whatever it is. I just feel that things are not made available for people. We want people to, you know, to be part of art. We want people to, you know, to be educated, but we're not making the resources available for. So I asked the question, is there funds? For me, I'm at the point where I actually feel in South Africa, we do have the funds to provide these resources for the people. What makes me say that is the fact that during that COVID time, if South Africa can come up with 500 billion, and then within a space of 3 months, that money disappears, clearly then we do have the funds to make things available for people. But we need the right people to manage these funds so that it is allocated to people who really need these funds. You know, you look at spaces like the Playhouse. I mean, that's in the CBD. People from the township would love to be there, but they don't see themselves in that space simply because, you know, they've got to change who they are so that now, you know, they get accommodated with the so-called city life. I come from the Eastern Cape. I'm now going to an urban area. Again, can you see what I mean? Looking for, I've got to, you know, move away from the rural areas to go and find a better education in an urban area. Why can't these things be provided for me in my own community, in my own space? So now I've got to pack up, move to a new place. Now I've got to readjust myself so that I can what? I can be accommodated, or I can fit into the city life. So I just feel things should be made available in places where people are situated so that we do not have to now, you know, put people in position where now they've got to reprogram themselves, they've got to reinvent themselves, they've got to rework themselves. Why can't you just pour into what they already have? Why can't you just add on to what they already have? Because exactly what I'm saying, moving to the township, you have to reinvent yourself so that you fit in. No, let's do it the other way around. Bring the resources to the people in their own comfort spaces where they are comfortable so that they grow in that and they do more. And of course, you know, they bring about positive and great change within their community. Let us not go and pour into other communities. Let us now start building in our own community, make great change within our community. Then we will see, you know, all the so-called the great youth, you know, the great contributors and etc. We do have them. I just feel people who are managing our funds are not giving those opportunities.
Love that. And, you know, just talking to the people where they are. You know, you don't always have to and have to migrate into spaces where people already are. You know, people exist everywhere. And so, you know, we've kind of been saying, because people exist everywhere, art exists everywhere, and we need to have and create more spaces for it to flourish and for it to be stimulated. I love that. I see Lita's joined us again. So I think I would love to throw the same question to him. I would really love to know, when we're thinking about ways in which we can open up the industry and open up, you know, arts, and open up some of the issues to access, how can we address that, and how should we be doing that better? What are the challenges that people are facing when it comes to access, and how can we be addressing those better? Oh no, I think we might have lost him again, which is really unfortunate because I was really hoping to hear from him. But I think let's hear from Joseph. You know, what are those challenges around, you know, opening up the industry and the arts, and how can we be addressing them better?
I feel that that's a very complicated issue when we look around it, because we not gate. It's not like it's the people that are the same age as us that are gatekeeping the funds into the industry. But we know for a fact that we're making amazing art. It's some of the best, world class art. We have the numbers, we have the audience, we have people that want this art. But for us to push it further, we also need funds. But then we cannot, because those funds are being restricted to get to us. So what can we do? We cultivate a new generation that okay, we cannot, since we cannot necessarily do it for ourselves, maybe we can actually do it for the generation to come. We cultivate a new generation that will be more acceptant of everything, that will be able to fund everything. So at this point, I just feel conflicted, and I just feel sad that unfortunately there's really nothing we can do, but we just have to set the path for the next generation, that when we are in charge, we don't have to gatekeep the funds for the next generation, but you know, just look out for them, because we also face the same problem.
Yeah, no, totally. I think I would love to hear from you, Nspa. What are some of the other challenges that maybe you might have had coming up as an artist and kind of finding your voice and finding your way in this space, related to funds or to any other issue that, you know, you might have found? I remember Becky mentioned, you know, having to migrate your actual location to be more visible in the space. So I think I would love to hear from you, Nspa. What are some of the issues that, you know, might be affecting artists and young artists, and how can we be better addressing them? Nspa, are you there? Your mic is just muted. There we go.
I didn't get that. I'm so sorry. What were you asking? It was
no
an internet
problem,
connection.
no problem. I was just asking, what are some of the challenges that you might have faced navigating the industry and the space? I think as we're thinking about, you know, how we can fix this and how we can open up the industry, whether it's related to funds or whether it's related to sort of having to migrate yourself into places where you're more visible. What are some challenges that you faced as a young artist, and how can we be better addressing them?
There's a lot. And I think in 2020, I stopped creating work, and I then sat down with myself and thought of how I can think of ways to win in the industry, or to just occupy the industry with my works, or with the few works that I've done, you know, done in the institution and outside of the institution. And what I've kind of realized is that in terms of opportunities, there's a huge gap in terms of the artist and the opportunity. And when I say the opportunity, I mean the funding companies or the people who are in charge in terms of organizing grants or funds, or for example, the panels of a certain funding company. I really feel like there should be a relationship between an artist and a panelist, and to really understand the kind of criteria, or like the kind of language, or the kind of ways that panels check applications and really understand it and be in the same level, and not just be in a level or be in a language where you're just writing about your work or explaining the work and asking for money for your work. You know, I really think that there is a distance between the opportunity and the artist. And I feel like in terms of institutions and artists starting out, we really need to have platforms like, you know, First Thursdays, where people are showcasing their works. This is like mostly in visual and music crafts, but I do feel like there should be exhibitions where we are exhibiting the first years, we're exhibiting their kind of perspective, their kind of ways that they want to engage or occupy in the industry, and not just the art itself, but the artists themselves, because we have a lot of artists that put up works. People don't show up because people don't know them, you know, and it's not a matter of we don't want to go and watch your shows, but we don't know you. And so I really want us as the new generation to think of ways of showcasing, to think of ways of exhibiting besides the art itself, but the language of the artist, the perspective of the artist, the way the artist is growing within the institution and the way that the artist is growing outside of the institution. Like, it's really a lot of things that we need to just put out there. We really just need to have platforms where we're just exhibiting show reels of actors. We really need people to be known, not just the art itself. You know, we really need to just create platforms that are not there. And we need to just be innovative in order for us.
Love that.
Just thrive.
Creative and in the ways that we showcase the actual artists. I love that, you know, putting more of a spotlight on the artists, the people behind the work. That's beautiful. Sorry to jump in there. I just see that we're kind of running out of time, and I kind of just want to hear from Joseph and Becky and hopefully Lita before we leave. What is your vision for the future of South African arts? What's something that you would love to see for the future of South African art and artists?
I would just like a future where every artist is appreciated and paid for it, and you know, we need to come to, you know, to an agreement that especially like when it comes to acting, there's like acting standards that, okay, this person meets the certain looks to play this role or to be in this movie. Meanwhile, they're not actually talented, and there's someone out there that's actually talented, that's more than talented, but because they don't meet the looks, they don't meet the standards that's been set by the industry. So I feel like we need to appreciate talent more, and we can hopefully get more artists putting out great work, just not only because of their looks, but
Yeah, because of their talent, for sure. I absolutely love that. And yeah, and pay people, you know, more struggling artists, no more exploiting young artists. Let's really start, you know, taking care of people. It can get very, very tricky in that situation. So I love that. Becky, let's hear from you. What is your vision for the future of South African art?
I think it's mine will sound exactly the same as Joseph. Pay the people for the work they do. I mean, people spend so much time creating the work, putting the work together. You know, it's sleepless night. Pay the people, and when we also talk about paying people, you know, recognize people's talent. Exactly, I agree, 100% agree with Vincent. Don't, you know, we often put out these characters that are already doing work. You know, we're not seeing that talent, and you're just like, okay. And it is really somebody who is really doing something so incredible, but they're not being paid and they just use there as an extra. So pay people for their work, recognize people's work. But most importantly, I just think that, you know, the art and culture, it needs to promote more of the people's work, whether be it included in the school curriculum. I think that is where we should start off, including it in the school curriculum. And not just, and when I say school curriculum, I'm not talking just about, you know, like the so-called the dramatic art, the visual arts and etc., but let it be part of the curriculum, where it does not necessarily involve performing, etc., but just that it's there within their education stream, so that, you know, let's get people to express themselves more. Let's allow people to be themselves. And like I was saying to some of my students for dramatic art, I was saying, you know, I just feel that sometimes, which I'm not putting you off, by the way, but I just feel that sometimes, you know, having to go and study performing art is such a waste of time, because I can study and have this degree. And then somebody who is incredibly talented, who's never studied, can just walk into this room and do such incredible work. So this is where the problem for me, I think, is. Let's recognize if people can do the job, then give the person the job. You know, this paper thing, sometimes it just doesn't meet. If somebody has the potential to do it, they must be given that platform to run with it. So pay them, give people the opportunity to try, and give people, you know, the space to showcase exactly what Nspa said. Give people the space, you know, for people to showcase their work. So I think in our country, those are some of the things that are lacking. They're looking for paperwork rather than the experience.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much. You guys heard it. Pay the people, recognize the people, say their names, when you publicize their work, you know, say their names. Nspa Nganywa, Pegy Samini, Josie Vincent. We want to hear their names, see their names, make them visible. Lastly, let's just hear from Nspa. What is your vision for the future of South African art? In a minute or less, please, because we are kind of running out of time. So, but I really would love to hear from you. What is your vision of the future of South African art?
My vision for the South African art is really, you know, what you just mentioned, Pegy, about the people who studied and the people who have it, who are gifted and who do not have to go to university or any art institution. We really need to educate ourselves and the way that we approach the industry, in terms of those two can be merged and those two can work into, like, they can work together. I'm not speaking in a perspective because I have studied theater, but there are things that are really needed. And so the future of the art industry really needs artists to really know all the ins and outs and all the elements. And so the other elements are really revealed when you are studying, and others are really natural in terms of the talent. So we really need to understand all the elements. We really need to understand contracts. We really need to understand every little detail. It doesn't matter if in the future you're going to have managers, but you really need to understand. And so that you are getting paid, and you are getting paid well, because you can be paid, but not be paid a good amount.
Totally.
So yeah.
Totally. Thank you so much.
Information,
exactly. And I think there's definitely merit in, you know, being a natural talent. But I think that's one thing that I would love for us to close on, and that art is something that you are, art is something that you learn, art is something that you develop and cultivate. You know, some people are born with it and some people, you know, work at it. And I think there's merit on both sides of the spectrum. And like you're saying, maybe one of the conversations we need to be having is in art education, instead of us talking about, you know, ancient artists from the 1900s, let's talk about contracts. Let's talk about things and necessary tools that you're going to be needing. So thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful, beautiful conversation on Gen Z art. Thank you for interacting in the Artfluence Human Rights Festival. It's been a beautiful, beautiful conversation here with these really incredible panelists. So I want to say thank you to all of the panelists. Thank you to everyone joining us online. It's been really incredible, and enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make magic and movies shared between sons and daughters, or just friends in their quarter. More music, more movement, more space for amusement, where history was made and the future is paved. Adventure awaits. Together, embraced. Just down the highway. Think Midlands, my way.